Good morning. Lori and I are honored to speak to you today and to represent the City of San Diego and the 320 employees that form the Bid to Go Labor Management Partnership. This partnership delivers wastewater treatment services to over 2 million residents in our region. This innovative public policy was developed to fill an empty niche in available optimization strategies for all government services delivered across the country. It addresses the same issues that challenge local government today, that is, meeting increased unfunded mandates and taxpayer expectations in an environment that resists raising taxes. The need to assure transparency of accounting and honesty in government, heightened security requirements, particularly after 9/11, and the need to avoid deferring maintenance for valuable infrastructure. The Bid to Go record has won over its many diverse stakeholders. Citizens and taxpayers are confident that budgets are competitive, something that we didn't have before. Oversight groups receive independent annual audits to validate reported performance. Management has full accountable relationship with labor, and employees enjoy real empowerment and have become entrepreneurial. At its core, Bid to Go is a collaborative labor management partnership incorporating the best features of the public and private sectors.
The Bid to Go program has been very effective in meeting and exceeding the stated goals and objectives. We have consistently met operational requirements, resulting in awards for regulatory compliance, innovations in local government, and for efficiency in government spending. The budgetary returns have been phenomenal. We saved $90 million over the first 5 years of the program. $70 million was saved by meeting the bid. An additional $20 million in audited savings was shared between the employees and the ratepayers. Through the efforts of the Labor Management Committee, that money has been used for several purposes. They funded interest-free loans for home computers for the employees. They purchased portable defibrillators for all of our facilities. They provided funds to help in purchase of a training facility, and they provided annual incentive pay to all the employees. There are other tangible benefits to the trust that is developed in this labor management partnership. It was most apparent recently during the approval process for the extension to our existing bid. We received unanimous support throughout the city from our oversight committees, from our city council, and from our labor organizations. But perhaps the most rewarding aspects are those intangible benefits that we see every day. We've lost that us against them attitude, and we've gained camaraderie. This is exemplified by a quote from one of our labor representatives who said, "I no longer believe that the grievance process is useful to us. We have a better way of dealing with disputes." That better way is our labor management partnership, empowering employees and joining with them in a common goal. We also see innovations at all levels in the organization because business as usual is no longer the accepted practice. We brought 3 new treatment plants online with no net increase in staffing levels. If we had taken the business as usual approach, our staffing would have increased from 320 employees to more than 800. Automation and remote operation were employed in order to gain efficiency and to keep those staffing levels at that level. These opportunities were never attempted before the implementation of Bid to Go. The program has allowed us to take a business-like approach to managing risks and rewarding employees in the context of government service. The program has saved the city $90 million, and it is easily replicated. We have developed a system wherein well-trained and empowered public sector employees deliver quality services at costs equal to or better than the private sector. The image of the uninspired bureaucrat has been made obsolete by refining the system to empower and focus the energies and pride of the workers. Our employees are passionate about measuring performance and being accountable for results. That vision of public sector employees is achievable. The Bid to Go program, as an optimization process and framework, has provided for such a vision. Thank you, and we'd be happy to answer your questions.
Questions? Ed Dorn.
I'm encouraged by everything you've said, particularly the change in the relationship between management and labor. But you mentioned that this is replicable And I wonder about that. And let me ask perhaps a fairly narrow question about the method that I confess I don't quite understand, by which you hire or engage a consultant to develop a kind of proxy bid. And one of the keys to the program is ensuring that that bid is realistic. One of the keys to the replicability of the program is the ability to replicate your particular consultant's method. So my question is whether or not that method is proprietary, owned solely by that consultant, or whether any old group of economic consultants could do it.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I don't know that any old group of consultants could do it, but we do think that it has to be provided in the private sector or have a best practice in the public sector that could be benchmarked against. And that we ask the mock bid, or the proxy bid as you put it, to be brought to the employees and to the stakeholders, and for them to study all of the assumptions at it. Now, it happened that in our pilot situation, it was never altered, but the fact that it was open and transparent to us was a much better situation than the normal, what we call open competition, where often we get lowball bids that are not responsive and responsible. And we think we can knock that out in this case. So if you're asking about the replicability of the mock bid or the private bid, and as long as there is an agency willing to provide that service and that is accepted as an expert, in our case we had to get a second consultant in to validate this for our stakeholders. So there's some issues there, but as long as that exists, you can replicate it with any service that you need to deliver. We feel quite confident of that, and we are taking this beyond our wastewater service to water and to other general fund services at this point.
David?
First, I want to follow up on that. You said as long as there's a second agency that's available. Do you mean another jurisdiction that you can benchmark against? Is that what you're saying?
Another entity, thank you, Mr. Osborne. Yes, normally we would want to benchmark with a private sector that provided that bid. I'm saying that in some cases you wouldn't have a private sector offering that service, and in that rare case, and we haven't come into that yet, we'd want to benchmark against an existing public agency. Okay. That was my point, that a best practice agency.
Okay. My question is, if your agency commits to achieve a certain level of savings and fails, then what happens?
Right. This was the most courageous part of this bid to me. We had public sector employees that signed the dotted line and said if they defaulted on the agreement, and this is the wording in the existing agreement, that they were subject to immediate bidding out of their jobs the next day. So you have a shark in the tank. They can lose their jobs if they default on the bid. And on the other hand, what are they getting for that? They're getting incentives, private type incentives that they never had before in the form of empowerment for decision making, and also cash awards proportionate to how much under the bid they come.
A shark in the tank. A vivid metaphor. Sound like San Diego Zoo. Bill Klinger.
I didn't use that metaphor when I was announcing it to the employees.
Yeah, right. Bill Klinger.
I guess my question really had to do with, have there been defaults, and has there been? What has been your record in terms of outsourcing? Are you outsourcing a lot less because of the program, and how's the default rate at this point?
Absolutely. As most of the management scientists wrote in the 90s, and we were informed by that process, certainly Mr. Osborne, our feeling was, and our experience bears that out, that if you can provide a framework that allows public sector employees to be entrepreneurial and competitive, they'll rise to that occasion. We have not had any defaults. I want to come back to that in a minute, and we do a lot less contracting out and outsourcing. Now, we feel there's a place for outsourcing, that's for sure. When we don't provide the material or the service, we'll do that. Now, and I want to make one point about defaulting. We have come close to the goal and never gone over it, but one of the innovations was that if you had a particularly good year in a prior year, there is a fund that gets funded by part of those savings that the employees control, and they can actually hold on to those dollars to potentially, as a private sector firm might, cover some losses in a future year. And it's a very interesting debate to see them determine whether they'll pay themselves some bonuses this year or hold on to that assurance fund money for a future year for a rainy day. It hasn't happened yet, but we've come awfully close to it.
David Osborne. Did you have a question?
I actually didn't have my hand up. I do have another question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you did, but I knew
I'm
you
still-
always had another question.
Yeah, I'm still going back to Ed Dorn's question. Are you saying that there are hundreds of consultants around the country who could do this kind of mock bid process so that hundreds of jurisdictions could replicate what you're doing?
Well, you're throwing me with the quantity of hundreds, but I think as long as there is a competitive situation in the private marketplace, and in wastewater there's less than 10 what I would call reliable contract operators, but and that's come down over the years because of the globalization of those firms. But certainly any of those firms, if they agreed to do it, could provide a mock bid as they would on their own contract. Of course, we have to define the services and the normal types of things that you write about to get to that point. But as long as, excuse me, sorry.
Okay.
Actually, I was interested in how the workers, came up with their innovative ideas. In your presentation, you said at one point, we like this better than the old system of dispute resolution. So I was so I was wondering what actually happened on the ground that the workers did differently or felt good about what they were doing or agreed to this.
I think the labor management partnership has fed into that a lot. The partnership it's a committee. We have a labor representative from each of the unions. Those labor organizations appoint employees from all the facilities. And then we have 2 management people that sit on the committee. It's a total committee of 19 people. But management has only 1 vote. This makes the employees very, very empowered, and they trust the process. And I think that trust has really brought out their innovation and their ideas, because they feel that they're not just going to be pushed aside by management. They think that, and rightly so, that we're listening to them.
To follow that up, I'm curious why labor is not represented here today.
That's a great question, and I'm the one to answer it because I solicited from that group, and it has to do, and Mayor Golding could appreciate that, with the fact that they're in southern sunny California, and I had one operator that I tried to get here with us that told me if I could produce surf in the reflecting pool, he'd come, but they sent us with their good wishes. They're with us all the way, that's for sure. But it's an interesting time, sir. It's time for proms and getting ready for proms and graduations, and we had a lot of that. So it was kind of a lot of individual cases. We normally do take them to presentations.
Right, but they're fully on board.
Absolutely.
Enthusiastic.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions here? I want to tell you just and let the record show that, of course, Susan Golding is a former mayor of your fair city, and was involved and engaged in this process early on, and that she has voluntarily said that she should not vote in fairness to the process on this particular issue. So I want everybody to be clear about that. In the meantime, Joe Harris and Lori Vera